Do you have unrealistic expectations? Or maybe you don't have any expectations at all, but you kind of do because we all have some kind of expectations. Where is the balance between the two? Because if we don't have that balance and if we can't figure it out, life's going to be pretty difficult. Because as the Buddhists say, all of suffering is rooted in attachment, and that's expectations. So how do we find that balance? And I'm sharing with you a really clear question to ask yourself. Will just get you out of all of this confusion. So let's dive right in. Have you ever been in a conversation where just nothing seems good enough? You know, you said one thing and you got a reaction. You tried another thing, still got a reaction. You're like, I don't know. I don't freaking know. I had this experience with my mother many years ago, and this was such a cause of frustration. I did not have a great relationship with her, and my mother's someone who has like a strong personality, and I remember just speaking to her and voicing what is authentic to me, what is true to me, which was so difficult to do at the time, but I'm like, hey, this is me. And then there was like a pushback to whatever I would say. And finally, I just asked, hey, let's pause a second. What do you want to hear? And she goes, what? I'm like, yeah, what do you want to hear? What would be the perfect answer that you want to hear from me? I'm not saying that I'm going to give you this answer. I'm just asking you, what is it that you want to hear so that I can clearly understand what your expectations are and then what your needs are, and then I can tell you if I can meet those needs or not. Because I feel like we're just going in circles. And she was so wildly confused by that question. She says, well, I don't know. And I said, well, if it's an I don't know, then I'm kind of doomed in this conversation because I'm telling you what is right for me. That's not good enough. I'm asking you, what is it that you want to hear? You don't know. So basically, whatever I say will not be good enough because you don't have clearly defined what is it that you're expecting of me. And so I can't even say yes or no to these expectations because they're not clearly defined. Now, we've all been in this situation. How about when you're the bad guy? And this is so important. It's so important to bring this to awareness and to see your ego, your inner critic, through the lens of humor. Like a small child, a toddler, they will literally have a tantrum. Like a 2-3-year-old say, I want to drink something. Okay, here's some water in a blue cup. They will literally have a tantrum because that cup is blue and not green like what they expected. A massive tantrum that will last quite a while because the cup is the wrong color. And you as a parent, you don't judge that like, what is wrong with you? You understand that they're coming into their own preferences, but you're also looking at this like, wow, this is really not a problem. Like, there are bigger things in the world, okay? But it seems like a big deal. And so with the same humor, with the same loving, compassionate humor, you get to look at your mind. You get to look at your inner critic and say, wow, is that what came up? And it loses its power because you're not identifying with it. You're coming into this observer seat and you're observing the ego and what's coming up for it and not laughing at it. But again, compassionate, loving humor. And so how about when we do this? How about when we're in this place of, it's not good enough, and we don't actually know what we want? Or maybe you're in an argument with someone, or maybe something they did earlier that day triggered you. So you're just kind of unconsciously sometimes, we're picking a fight. And it's like, nothing's good enough. And then if you actually ask yourself, like, stop, what I really want from them, I have no clue. I have no clue. I just want to be upset with whatever they're doing. Bringing this to awareness. Because allowing the freedom to others, the price to pay for that is to allow freedom to yourself. Where is it that we're not being clear about our expectations? Or have you ever heard someone say, oh, I have no expectations, but they kind of do? And again, we all do this. And this is the difference between living consciously. When you understand what your mind is doing and you also are choosing to consciously create the structure in your life. You know your values. You look over your values at least once a year. You live in integrity with those values. You make decisions in your life in integrity, in alignment with those values. You call yourself out. You come into the observer seat and call yourself out on this, oh, I have no idea what I actually want from them. We're in this place where nothing is good enough. And you are able to do that because you don't identify with it. You understand that it's a separate part of you that's doing this. And let us inhale into that, into the body, coming to right now. Because you can only have this awareness if you're not identified in the story, if you're not fully in here. So bring your awareness down to the body. Good. So the question really here is, well, what am I identifying with? And what do I really want? What are my expectations? And it's really helpful when you're able to create clear expectations of a conversation, of a moment, because not only is it easier for the person you're interacting with, it's easier for you. Because you know when you were let down, you know when it all went wrong. I had an experience recently with a friend where they brought their family members, I brought my family members, and the whole day, just something felt off and I couldn't formulate it. And then at the end of the day, I was finally able to say like, hey, this and this happened. This wasn't right for me. And I just needed like a breath of fresh air away from that. And they're like, oh, I had no idea because nothing was really communicated. I'm like, I know. And I realized that we just kind of went with the flow. There were no expectations, but really things that weren't working for me were becoming so evident because the expectations weren't set, because the expectations weren't communicated even within me. And this is the gift, the sacredness, the magic of boundaries. We feel like boundaries is like walls. It's very different. Boundaries create connection. Boundaries create safety. Clearly communicated expectations create safety. They create connection. You know what to expect. You know what the other person wants. It's easy. There's no way to go wrong. Clear communication. And so many of us spend time, and I really see this all the time on Instagram, especially those relationship coaches, and people ask them questions like, ooh, what do you think it means? Ask them. Just ask the person who sent you that message. That's what it means, whatever the person says. Clear communication. And if a person's not up for that, if the person's playing games, then get away from that. That's going to be so exhausting on your nervous system. And additionally to that, we've all heard this. We are the combination of the top 5 people we spend our time with. Do you want to be that person who plays games? Do you want to be this person who does not clearly communicate their expectations, who doesn't even know what they want, who are kind of going with the flow, but not really? What are your expectations? Any given moment. I encourage you to practice this week. Like, oh, okay, I'm hanging out with someone, or I'm coming into the workday. What are my expectations of what needs to be done? Because your own inner critic also beats you up for this, right? It's like, I'm going to have a productive day. What are your expectations? What are the criteria for a productive day? Because if you ask your inner critic, nothing's ever enough. It will never be enough. Very clear expectations. So on this note, a free resource down below to support you in creating space between you and your mind, understanding that there is a you, a centeredness, a presence that remains when you drop all the masks. That resource is free and it is below. And if you want to dive deeper into this work and work one-on-one or check out the Thrive membership, information is also below. I thank you for being here. If you're new, please go ahead and subscribe to more of this content, of this resonated. And as always, I'm wishing you a very powerful day.